said in the introduction, I work for Microsoft in Boston remotely from Osaka. And I work in the Office division, but also in my free time I do a lot of web app development and Ruby on Rails and Django and things like that on Python. And Microsoft has this service called Azure, which I've never used before. I've used Heroku, I've used AWS for virtual machines, things like that. But I've never used Azure, and I wanted to kind of learn about it because I like to know, what my company's up to. Also, this guy's our new CEO, and he originally was the head of the Azure division. So, for me, like learning about Azure would maybe give me an idea of where Microsoft's headed in the future. And I figured I was never actually going to, look into it more seriously or anything unless I had some kind of deadline to meet. So this was the purpose. I gave myself a reason to do research, which was to present my findings to you guys. So Azure is basically the name for all of Microsoft's cloud services, which can kind of be really confusing when you're trying to search for help on something in Google or whatever, or Bing. Because you search for Azure Cloud Services, I need to do this, and then you get things for websites and virtual machines. But anyway, Azure is the name for all of them. Some of the more interesting ones, I think, Some of the more interesting ones, I think, for this group, kind of more hackers, people that want to build services and stuff for more small scale, are the websites, cloud services, virtual machines, and mobile services. So websites is kind of similar to any web host like DreamHost or I don't know, whatever's in Japan. One of the cool advantages is it scales really easily. Cloud services is something like Heroku. Virtual machines, like Amazon, and then mobile services. I'm not going to really talk about, but it's basically a way to make it easy for your mobile applications to authenticate and store data in the cloud. So I'll start talking about websites. The websites thing, like I said, it's kind of like DreamHost or something. It has a few cool features, like you can use git push to push changes to the server, which makes it really easy to use on any platform or whatever. It also is really easy to scale. A single instance is 986 yen, and basically every additional instance costs the same. You can get dedicated hosting, so that's like a shared VM. You can get dedicated hosting for a lot more money, but with faster service. The shared plans give you 5 gigabytes of bandwidth, and it also gives you a free 20 megabyte database, which isn't that much. The free database is a little weird. I'll show you guys how it works in a little bit. So yeah, pros and cons. It's easy to scale. It supports .NET, PHP, Java, and Python. You can push a Git repo to publish. Connects easily with other Azure services if you're using the databases or virtual machines or whatever. It has really good Visual Studio integration, which I'll show you. The downsides are it's relatively expensive if you just want a simple web host. The outsourced MySQL databases I'll show you about is weird. And the free 20 megabyte database is shared between all of your sites. So if you have multiple sites hosted in one Azure account, you only get one 20 megabyte database, which seems strange. But of course you can pay for like normal databases too. So Azure demo. Let's see. So I've got a few things here. This is what there we go. Okay, so this is what the Azure control panel looks like. This week, to kind of see what it looked like, I tried making a cloud service and a website. So this, where's my mouse? Over here. So this Family Promise NSB is just a simple WordPress site that I host for a charity in Boston, and I wanted to try just doing a migration of their WordPress data to Windows Azure to see how it would work. You can drill into these. Another cool thing is you can see basically all the things that Azure provides are on this corner, and if you want to add a new service or whatever, you just click add, and it's really simple. So when you go into one of these, it shows you a bunch of information, about how resources are being used and stuff. I'll show you this thing about databases. They outsource their MySQL databases. You can, of course, use Azure databases, but for the free MySQL, it's outsourced. So if you click here, it actually takes you to another service and called ClearDB, and then my name here is subscription user, and they give you a little bit of information about your service. The thing that I found most annoying about this was, for this website, I used Azure's East Coast hosting because that's where the charity is located. And for whatever reason, they block international IPs or something, because I was trying forever to connect to the SQL database, and it was blocked, and I could not figure out why. Finally, I tried VPNing into a server that I have on the East Coast, and everything worked fine. So that was kind of annoying because it's not mentioned anywhere or anything. I imagine if you used a Japan server, it would be fine, but yeah, that was kind of annoying. Let's see, so what else to say? Yeah, I'll show you what this is, keep this small. I'll show you how easy it is to set up. There it is. So they've got these options, so from gallery is kind of cool. Obviously you can make your own PHP apps and stuff, but if you want to quickly put together a site, they have all kinds of neat things that you can set up, like a Django site, or Flask, Joomla, WordPress, MediaWiki, a bunch of things out of the box. I think for me this was kind of interesting because I think traditionally Microsoft has been very, if it's not built here, we're not going to support it. But I think it was cool with Azure that they're supporting PHP, Python. They've got all these neat open source tools that you can run on their platform, which kind of surprised me. And I think that's cool that the guy who ran this is now CEO. Maybe we'll see those changes in other parts of the company too. And I think it's definitely a response to just the way the world's moving. With people don't want to be tied down to one platform for anything. So that's the websites. Any questions about that? I can click on things or show you stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
So for the apps, are they added as a virtual container, or are they actually integrated as a full service? For instance, if you add a PHP, for example, to your web host, does the PHP act as a virtual container, or it just suddenly becomes available?
So with these, it just suddenly becomes available. I'll show you cloud services later, which I think is probably more along the lines where you can have different contained applications.
Got it.
Yeah, this is a very kind of basic type. Another kind of weird thing about this, at least for me, anytime when I've in the past built apps with other people, we always like to have our own. So for example, in Heroku, they provide these free dev accounts, which we would always push our changes to the dev account and we test. As far as I can tell on here, if you make a new site, you've got to pay for it. So it's a little bit of a barrier to entry if you have multiple people working on sites and you want to have different stage deployments and things like that. But and cloud services is a little better, but the one thing that I really wish this had was a free account that you could just test against.
One question?
Yeah.
So you mentioned in general, Joomla, WordPress and everything. Are they all running on Windows servers or Linux servers or something else?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've read that Azure, the way Azure works, there's the host machine is always a Windows server. But they spin up VMs that can be the different Linux distributions or Windows. I didn't get the impression that there was anywhere where I could really see what was going on behind the scenes here. And that's probably the way it should be. So I'm not sure what they're actually running, like WordPress and Joomla and stuff on. I imagine sometimes they're running on Linux because it's easier to set up than Windows.
Yeah, the reason why I'm asking is there are some incompatibilities sometimes between the differences in the environments. So it could be important to know which one you're running on.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I didn't investigate deep enough to see where that would happen, but yeah, certainly Windows in particular can be difficult to run some of those applications. I'm not sure. I'm not sure though. Let's see. PowerPoint. How else is this? Oops. So the second thing is Azure Cloud Services. This one is relatively new, and it was kind of hard for me to figure out what they support. And their documentation is way too far on the marketing side and not enough on the tech side, unfortunately. And every time I tried to look up like Azure Cloud Services Ruby, I'd always get setting up Ruby on Azure VMs. So I couldn't really get the information I wanted. But I know that it supports .NET, PHP, Java, Python, and Node.js. One of the kind of interesting things is, along with Azure Cloud Services, Microsoft provides a set of things, kind of like Heroku Toolbox, where you can manage from Linux or Mac or Windows. And that's all in Node.js, and it's open source. These also have Git and Visual Studio integration, and I'll show you how that works with a Django app, like a really simple Django app. And then there's 10 different instance configurations, so depending on if you want more memory, more processing speed, cheap, expensive, they've got it all. Which, if you compare it to Heroku, which only has 3, you might find something that fits your needs better. So I compared the prices to Heroku. This is, I think, monthly prices in yen. And Azure is a little bit cheaper, but it's not a huge difference. I don't think price is really a contributing factor to whatever platform you want to use. But I'll show you how it works. If you use Windows, of course you can push from Git, use Git to push from anywhere, but in Windows, using Visual Studio, they've actually got really cool integration if that's a platform that you like to use. So this is a really simple Django app. It's actually the sample app that they have on the Django tutorial. I just pulled it into Visual Studio. If you don't know, also Visual Studio has really nice Python integration. So you can like run the app locally, built in. I mean, it's not that hard to do that without this. But this is actually a lot slower. Oh, this is gonna run the. I don't want the Azure emulator. All right, we'll forget that. But if you want to, if you want to make a change to an app or something, and then you can just say publish to Windows Azure, and that will publish it to your cloud service. And did I get that right? Yeah, I think so. So I had previously kind of set up some basic settings for it. And you can click publish, and it will do all the database migrations and stuff. But and then while it's doing that, your old site will still be live. So it works very similar to Heroku, but with nice Visual Studio integration. And let's see. So yeah, I mean, the site itself isn't that interesting. It's just the basic. If you guys have ever programmed in Django, you've probably done the tutorial where you set up a polling application. So that's all this is. And you can see virtual machines, mobile services, cloud services. Okay. There it is. Yeah, so you can see the app running. Wow, that looks pretty ugly.
All right, Jim.
So there you go. That's tested that before I came here. Oh, read only. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't actually set up a database. I was just using SQLite, so yeah, I guess it's read only. Oops. Let's see. So back on here. So that's what the cloud services look like. And I think another really valid question here is, what is the back-end operating system? I'm not sure, unfortunately. But I think that's a really important question that should be answered before you would consider deploying anything in Azure or any cloud service. The last thing is Azure VMs. And this was something also that was really kind of encouraging for me. You got a lot of OS choices. Again, everything is hosted on Windows Server, but then there's you can pretty much have any operating system you want. You can also upload your own images, so you have a lot of flexibility. The one downside is if you compare it to Amazon EC2, there are fewer configuration choices. There's still a lot, but EC2 has an amazing amount of flexibility with what, how much memory, how much processing speed, even how many SSDs you want for your instances. So that's something, you don't really have choice over how you store the data, like the SSDs, and you have fewer choices of configurations for memory and processing speed. The prices, like depending on what you're comparing, sometimes it's higher or lower. Again, I think a lot of these things are becoming commoditized, so you're not going to really see a big price difference depending on what service you use. I didn't actually, virtual machines aren't really that interesting. You spin them up and then you SSH in and that's it. So I didn't actually make one. I'll just trust that they work and show you guys kind of what it would look like to make one. So if I go to virtual machine, you can just say create, these are some of the machines that they offer. SUSE, Ubuntu, Windows Server. One thing that did seem to be true, so I was mostly comparing Linux virtual machines. If you compare the Windows prices on Azure versus Amazon, for example, I think there you start to see more of a price differential where this is a little bit more advantageous to use from the price perspective, which makes sense, I guess. So you got Ubuntu, CentOS, even Oracle. I don't know who uses that, but it's there. So if you're looking for virtual machines, this could be an interesting option. And again, I think one of the things, if you're using some of the other, more advanced things that I didn't really have time to look into, like their Insight stuff or their, I think they just released some kind of artificial intelligence, like natural language processing type tools or something like that. So if you find those tools useful, then you might want to use some of these others too. Let's see, back to the presentation. Oh no, that was the end of the presentation. So yeah, this is kind of a brief look at Azure. If you're if you're like me and you've used these tools before but you've never seen this one, I have the free, because I'm an employee, MSDN Ultimate subscription, which gives me some room to play around in here, which is why I looked at it. So yeah. If you guys want to click on anything, if you want to, we can practice buying a virtual machine or whatever later. That's fine. Yeah. Any other questions?
So,
yeah.
Sorry, what's Microsoft doing for the awareness of Azure? Because we don't hear so much about it anymore. So.
Yeah, I see in the US. I see a lot of advertisements for it, and I don't know if they're targeting the right audience, but I haven't seen a whole lot recently. They seem to have these kind of big advertising pushes and then they back off for a while. From what I've read, it sounds like it's very popular with enterprise, which is typically where Microsoft makes its money anyway. And so I'm not sure that they're actually targeting small businesses and stuff so much, even though they have some decent small business tools. I don't think it's been their focus, so they haven't been targeting it for their marketing. Yeah,
sorry. I don't want to necessarily answer your question for you. But,
yeah.
In terms of mobile services, which you haven't, you didn't talk too much about today, they're actually pushing that to Apple developers because, and actually, from what I've heard, if you're developing iOS apps or particularly iOS and Android apps, mobile services sounds really good because if you use something like iCloud, obviously. You're locked into the Apple platform, whereas mobile services is, I think, similarly agnostic. You can use Node.js, you can use a bunch of different things, but you get push notifications handled for you, and authentication, like you said, all that stuff can all be done. And I'm interested in Apple and read a lot of Apple websites, and I see their ads a lot.
Cool. Yeah, that was one. I was interested in it. I did nothing with mobile development, so I didn't look into it too deeply. But it seemed like I had never heard of another service that provided the same set of tools. Do they have competition?
I think Facebook bought Pulse. Facebook bought someone else that was providing something, but it wasn't exactly the same as mobile services. Like mobile services is not that different from iCloud, but it's as I said, it's agnostic, so you can use different things. You don't have to use what Apple tells you. You can have it go across. Obviously, if you've got an Android device, a Windows phone, you can make it work with that. It just sounded more flexible, and I haven't used it myself personally, but if I was using something, it sounded like it would just be easier than doing everything on your own, or trusting that, oh well, I'll never need anything other than what Google gives me or what Apple gives me.
Yep.
I don't work for Microsoft.
You're absolutely right. You're to develop as an app developer, if you want to develop a commercial grade app, at least from my own experience, I integrate more than 10 types of services, such as push notification, emails, the stuff that I wouldn't want to spend months to develop myself.
Cool. Yeah.
Sorry, I was late, but I actually use at work AWS, not different.
Yeah.
But just one quick question. How is the monitoring in here? Because AWS you can only see for free, like the past 2 weeks of logs.
Oh, I see.
For like CloudWatch and all that. But how about these services? Like, is that the same thing?
I set all this up this week, so I don't know this really know. I imagine virtual machines are have a little bit better data.
They're available, but of course for an extra fee, which is what.
Oh, I see.
Oh, you got 7 days actually.
Yeah. Yeah, this is only for a website. Virtual machines might be better, but I'm not sure about that one. Yeah. You had a question?
I was just going to ask you as a tag on to Rafael's question. Do you feel like Microsoft has any kind of unique value proposition with this, or they're just trying to get their product in the same space as Amazon and everyone else?
I think, I mean, the things that I showed you today are mostly commodities.
Yeah.
They're not. There's not really a special way to do it. Like you just push code to the cloud and it should work, and that's the end of it. I think probably the more interesting innovations are the things that I didn't cover. Like mobile services, their natural language processing tools, media service. I don't know what they are, but there's a bunch of little icons here that I think are probably where the real value proposition lies.
So you put a lot of preparation into this presentation. Time.
Yeah, I started this week. So. Yeah. And I mean, honestly, like my... where like my kind of knowledge and background of this is building like fairly straightforward web apps.
Yep.
So I didn't really have the knowledge to even be able to look at that and quickly understand what it meant, what would be interesting about it. So unfortunately, I don't have the expertise to talk to those, and I'm not actually on the Azure team or know anything about them. So
But you do work for Microsoft.
I do work for Microsoft.
You get it for free.
Yeah, so I guess at least all full-time employees get an MSDN Ultimate subscription, which is really cool. It gives you access to like all of Microsoft software ever made, and so you can do things like start at DOS and upgrade all the way to Windows 8 or whatever.
Yeah, so they give you invites for your friends or something.
Yeah. I can get you discounts on software. But also, as part of, they give you $150 a month of free money to spend on Azure. So, so that's what I figured I should start taking advantage of it. So I set up an account this week. Yeah, that's one of my favorite benefits for working there, is having access to this huge software library. That's unfortunately rather exclusive compared to a lot of the open source tools. So, in the sense that like there's usually like some barrier to entry because you have to pay money for things more so.
Do you have access to like previous releases before a golden release, something like betas?
So I have access to like when they release a public beta or something, I'll have access to that. I get access to like super early versions of Windows and Office because that's where I work. But that's not through MSDN. That's just And that's not something I can take home. That's just like for my work computers and stuff. We're from the very beginning when we start a new release, we're encouraged to use the new release, which means we suffer through lots of crashes and things like that when we're working. But the goal is to reduce the amount of those experiences that customers get. So we call it eating our own dog food. We run our software like from the day we start a new iteration. We're using it on our computers.
So it's not true that some people in Microsoft use Linux?
Yeah, I mean some do. So kind of I think as part of the Azure thing, there's a group that works in Boston that is very active in the Linux kernel development because primarily with the goal of improving their support with Hyper-V and the Microsoft virtualization technology. So there are definitely some people that use Linux. For me, I work on apps for Mac OS and Windows, so we've got a mix of Macs and PCs in our office. Definitely, like, if you looked at Microsoft Office 10 years ago and today, you see a lot more diversity in what people are using and what we're building and stuff. So I think that's encouraging for Microsoft's future. If you have any interest in Microsoft's future, I have monetary interest in it. I'm encouraged by the fact that they are kind of opening up to the, they're responding to the community and they're opening up, providing service agnostic tools, which is I think what people really need when there's also, you see a lot of services that want to kind of build walls. Microsoft is now, in the camp of let's not build walls and let's try to be agnostic, which I think is a change for them, and I think it's a good change.
How much of that do you think is Microsoft electing to be progressive, and how much of it do you think is just like, oh shit, we have LibreOffice and all these guys coming in and they're just going to destroy us in 5 years if we don't do this?
There's definitely, that's definitely, there's definitely that kind of reaction that they could make themselves extinct by only providing for a platform that that is becoming just one of many.
I think they're safe from LibreOffice.
They're safe from LibreOffice. I use LibreOffice sometimes. They're safe for a while from now. I mean, those guys are working hard and they've got a good product, but for enterprises, especially in enterprises where Microsoft makes the most money on Office, they're never. I mean, it's hard enough to get them to upgrade to the latest version of Office. They're never going to switch to LibreOffice.
Excel in Japan.
Huh?
Excel in Japan.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard about how they use Excel in Japan, like at Microsoft over there?
So
ideas of what the crazy things Japanese people doing here?
My only experience before a wedding, we did a wedding video thing in Japan, and I had to type in like a kind of caption for every slide of the video, and they were doing some weird thing like counting characters or something where it would convert like a line of text to cells of text. Like it was the worst thing ever, and it would take a long time to render just like a single line of text. So whatever they're doing, I think it could be terrible.
They use it like a programming language.
Yeah.
I know previous work who could be doing something in pairs. She would do something in some macros in Excel, and here it is. And I'm like, what did you do?
Microsoft does that right now. We just like boom, and then we have a whole like pages of reports coming out.
Yeah, it's an interesting challenge for us because
we're trying to automate it in the
Yeah. But so like in my job, I'm trying to work on the new technology, but we're also trying to make sure that all of these tools and stuff that are often kind of, being used in ways that we didn't expect and stuff like that, will continue to work for those customers. So there's a big legacy that we have to maintain every release, which can be very challenging, but it's also really important.
Yeah, I don't think Word. I probably Word is just 30% in Japanese companies. 70% or 80% will be Excel.
Yeah.
Everything Japan moves to Excel like all countries.
Yeah, I'm so glad I don't want to work on the Excel team. I wouldn't even know where to begin trying to figure out how to maintain backwards compatibility with all the ways that it's used. Yeah, that sounds like a hard challenge. Oh, yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.